Good morning, students. I am Shishpal Chauhan, and today I have brought one very interesting story for you, for the students of class 11. And the title of the story is The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse, and this has been written by William Saroyan. And this story is from your book Snapshot. And there will be 3 videos in all of this story. This is the first video of the summer of the begin. And this is William Saroyan, the writer of this story. He was born on August 31st, 31, 1908, and he lived up to 18th May 1981. He was born in California. This story is about the 2 boys. Let me tell you about this story, what the story is about in nutshell. And this story is about 2 boys who belong to a tribe that has been known for their honesty. But the boys had a passion for riding a horse. Since the family couldn't afford to buy a horse, one of the boys stole a horse, and both of them kept enjoying riding for several days. And this story, let me simplify this slide also. This story is about 2 boys who belong to a tribe. Tribe is a group of families that has the same what you call ancestor. Suppose there was one father, and that becomes after 11 generations it becomes a vast family. Right, there are so many families in one tribe, and people are known for their tribes also. And tribal people lives in mountains and other places of the country, who belong to a tribe that had been known for their honesty. But the boys, they were famous for their honesty, but the boys had a passion for riding a horse. Since the family could not afford to buy a horse, one of the boys stole a horse, and both of them kept enjoying riding for several days. The family was poor at present. They could not afford to purchase a horse for the boy. One of the boys, this is a story of 2 boys, and one of the 2 boys had a passion for riding. Both of the boys had passion for riding, but the family could not afford to buy a horse for them. So what they could do in that situation, you will find in the story. And they stole a horse, and both of them kept enjoy riding on that horse for several days. And did they return that horse? Did they get punishment for that? You will find in the story. But after that, they leave it at the place. This suspense is broken here. After some time, they leave the horse at the same place from where they had taken it. The writer has made this story by adding so many other things, and all of you all also enjoy it. There are so many incidents in the story which highlight this theme, and many interludes are included in the story. Interesting incidents, the writer describes them in a very minute manner, in a very beautiful manner. You will enjoy this story. The conversation between the 2 boys is very interesting, and then the narrator describes other things related to that story. That's fantastic, and you will surely enjoy it. The world was full of magnificence. The narrator, who is the narrator? Narrator is the person who tells the story. Sometimes the writer is the narrator, but in more situations, we may find that the writer is not the narrator. Some other person may be narrator. The person who writes the story in first person, he says I like that, then it's narrator. Right? He may be the writer, he may be the other person. Here in this story, the narrator is Aram. His name is Aram, and the writer is not the narrator in this story. So the narrator begins the story by telling us about the world was full of magnificence and life was still like a delightful and mysterious dream for him. Why does he say this? Still, the operating word is still, yet. The life, actually, these are the boys, two boys. They are in boyhood. One is below 13 years. The narrator is below 13 years. Right? It means he has passed his childhood, entered his boyhood now. Therefore, in childhood, everything is full of glory. Everything seems splendid, magnificent to a child. And in boyhood also, because he is not under any pressure, under any strain of this material world, of this world in which we and the grown-ups are victims of so many tensions. So therefore he says that the world was full of magnificence, glory, and life was still like a delightful and mysterious dream. Life had so many dreams for them, pleasant. They were having so many dreams in their mind to fulfill them in the life. So life was very attractive for them. From this point of view, from the point of view of a boy who has not experienced any sufferings, any tensions of the world. So life was glorious for them. That's why he has used still here. Then the narrator tells about his cousin Murad, whom everybody considered crazy. Then the narrator tells us about Murad, right? He says that he was crazy. Everyone knew that Murad was crazy. He was very close to the narrator, his cousin Aram, and didn't make more friends. The narrator tells us that his cousin Murad he had no other friends. Only he was very close to his cousin Murad, the narrator. Let me read the full slide, then I'll analyze this. He was very close to the narrator, his cousin Aram, and didn't make more friends. One early morning at 4, he woke up the narrator by tapping on the window of his room. Murad had called the narrator by his name Aram, so he at once jumped out of his bed in surprise and looked out of the window, right? So the narrator tells us that Aram is the narrator, that Murad was very close to him, the narrator tells us. And another thing, he tells us that one morning, early morning at 4 a.m., Murad came to his house. He was on his white horse. He was sitting on the white horse, and he came near the window of the room, and he pronounced the name Aram. He called the narrator by his name Aram, and the narrator jumped at once in surprise. Who could be calling him by his name? And he jumped from the bed. In a way, he woke up in surprise, and then he peeped out of the window. He looked out of the window as to who could be that person. Murad had called the narrator by his name Aram, so he at once jumped out of his bed in surprise and looked out of the window. He could not believe his eyes when he saw Murad sitting on the back of the beautiful white horse. Aram put his head out of the window and rubbed his eyes to remove sleep from them. At this, Murad told him that he was not dreaming, and in reality he was watching him sitting on a horse. After jumping up from bed, means after waking up, he peeped out, he looked out from the window, and then he could not believe his eyes that his cousin Murad was sitting on a beautiful white horse back. He was sitting on the back of that horse, and he could not believe. That's why he tried to rub his eyes to remove sleep from his eyes and to ascertain whether he was watching his cousin Murad sitting on the white horse in reality or he was dreaming. Then Murad understood what he was thinking about. Then Murad told him that he was not dreaming, he was watching him in reality. He was sitting on the back of the beautiful white horse. This was the reality for him. He told him that thing, right? And now let's go ahead. Everything is understood by you? Yes. Says that his cousin Murad is always full of life and wants to live every moment of life fully. The narrator also has a burning desire to ride a horse. The narrator now tells us about the financial condition of his tribe. There are two or three things told in this, described in this slide. One thing is that Aram says about his cousin Murad that he was full of life. He wanted to enjoy life fully. Every moment of life he wanted to enjoy. He was full of life and wants to live every moment of life. He was energetic. He was lively character. He never looked passive. And he was vibrant, animated face, expression, all that, as if he wanted to live life fully in a very enthusiastic way. The narrator also has burning. Another thing we come to know from this slide, the narrator had also burning desire in his heart to ride a horse. And then third thing, the narrator tells us now, he begins to tell about the financial condition of the tribe, how their economic status was. He says that they are so poor that they cannot afford to keep a horse. This is the reason as to why he is unable to believe his eyes that his cousin can have a horse. Why he was not believing that his cousin was riding a horse, he had some strong basis for that. He knew that his tribe was very poor. They could not afford to purchase a horse for his cousin Murad, right? And that's why he was disbelieving that thing, that reality. He was not ready to accept that thing, right? Therefore, he was unable to believe his eyes that his cousin can have a horse. The narrator continues telling that their whole tribe was poverty-stricken. Every branch of the Garoglanian family was living in poverty, and it was not known to any member of the family as to where from money came to them to manage food and other necessities of life. Let me analyze. The narrator continues telling about the financial condition of the tribe, of the families. Right? The whole tribe was poverty-stricken. Right? All families, those came under the tribe, they were poverty-stricken. They were poor people. Every branch of the Garoglanian family was living in poverty, and it was known to every member of the family as to where. It was not known. Nobody knew in the family, in that tribe. Any member, all the members, you can say, they didn't know where money was coming to them. Where from money was coming to them to manage food, other necessities of life. We have to purchase other things to sustain our life, and so they didn't know where from money was coming to them. Even the old members of the family didn't know this. They also admit, they also said that they didn't know where from money was coming to them. It was they used to say it might be it was God's grace. But in spite of their poverty, they had all been very famous for their honesty for 11 centuries. The narrator also tells us that once they had been the wealthiest family in the whole area. So three things here in this slide. One, no old members, even the old members of the family didn't know where from the money was coming to them. Second thing we come to know from this slide, they were famous for their honesty. In spite of their poverty, they never stole anything, they never cheated anything, they never deceived any person on the basis of money, in the matter of money, right? They were honest person, and they were famous for their honesty also. Other thing we come to know that they had been the wealthiest family in the whole area. The narrator tells us that their family was the wealthiest one. There was time when their family was the wealthiest. So three things you came to know. One, no member of the family didn't know, knew. No member of the family knew that where from money came to them. Secondly, they were famous for honesty. And the third thing is that once there was a time when they were the wealthiest tribe or families in the whole area. Eighth slide, he also tells us that they were proud first, honest next, and after that they believed in right and wrong. None of their family members thinks of taking advantage of anybody or stealing anything. The same thing has been repeated here. They were proud of their honesty, of their tribe, known for honesty, and they were proud first, honest next. After that they believed what is right and what is wrong, and none of their family members ever thought of stealing anything. They never committed any theft, and they never think about taking advantage of anybody, taking advantage of this situation also. They never thought about that thing. So in their life they never cheated any person. Next, the narrator tells us as to how he reached the conclusion that his cousin Murad had stolen the horse, in spite of the thought that was making him disbelieve it. The horse was magnificent and lovely, standing in front of him. It was all exciting for Aram to see it breathing. He could smell it. Now, another idea that was disturbing his mind was that Murad was sitting at the back of a white horse. Where from he could get that? The family had no money. It means he had stolen that, and he had to reach that conclusion, whether he had stolen it or not. That was the conclusion that was striking in his mind, that he must have stolen the horse because family could not afford purchasing that. So the narrator tells how he reached the conclusion that it was stolen horse, and secondly, in spite of the thought that was making him disbelieve it, but another thought was conflicting in his mind, striking against that very thought. One thought was coming that he had stolen it. Another thought was that he could not steal because their family was known for their honesty. He could not breach the trust of the family members. He could not go astray from the honesty that was their treasure, that was earned treasure. They earned through these 11 centuries. They maintained that trust. He could not betray that trust. He could not break that trust. So the thought was conflicting in his mind. He could steal or he could not steal. And another thing about the horse. Horse was very magnificent, very superb and lovely, standing in front of him as a reality. And it was all exciting for Am to see it breathing. This was the temptation coming in his mind. Although he followed values of his family, he believed that they were honest, they are honest, his cousin cannot cheat anyone, and the horse was lovely. And he could have the smell of the horse through the window also. He could listen to him, to the horse breathing, right? And in this way, temptation was also entering his mind. He knew it well that his cousin could not buy it. He also believed that no member of the Gregorian family, Gallian family could be a thief. After that, the narrator stares at his cousin, mad at the horse, stares at his cousin sitting at the horse, you can say sitting here. There is delight and some honor on his face, and it on one hand delights and on the other hand frightens the narrator. Let me analyze that slide. He knew it well that cousin could not steal, right? One thing he knew. And he also believed that no member of his tribe, Garblanian family, would be a thief. Two things. And after that, narrator stares at his cousin. He was sitting on the back of the horse, and there was delight and pride on his face, delight and honor on his face. And on one hand delights, and on the other hand frightened. The narrator was feeling happy to watch the horse. Horse was standing in front of him, and on the other side he was frightened also. The thought that it could be a stolen horse, that was frightening him, and he was going to be part in that wrongdoing. So that was his guilty conscience was pricking him, that was troubling him, right? And therefore, on one side he was being tempted to ride the horse, on the other side he was pricked by his conscience, he was troubled by his conscience. It was stolen horse. He asked Murad as to where from he has stolen that horse, but instead of answering, Murad tells him to leap out of the window if he wants to enjoy a ride. Thus, the narrator is sure that his cousin has stolen it. After that, he asks Murad as to where from he has got that horse. But instead of answering, instead of telling that the truth about the horse, where from he had picked the horse or taken the horse, he told him to jump out of the window and enjoy a ride on that horse. He stopped to make any question where from he has got, and he should bother about riding the horse only. He stopped him, say, but instead of answering, Murad tells him to leap, means jump out of the window if he wants to enjoy a ride. Thus, the narrator is sure that his cousin has stolen it. Since the narrator cousin of the narrator's cousin, didn't reply him satisfactorily, therefore he concluded that the horse is stolen. This is a stolen horse. Here, the narrator also seems to be tempted to enjoy a ride. That's why he tries to relax on what he thinks of stealing a horse just for a ride and stealing something like money. As you know, his conscience was pricking him. He was troubled in the heart of hearts that the horse is stolen. I'm becoming a party to it. He might be thinking about that. But this is human nature. Sometimes students may be doing some wrong activity, but they listen to the conscience, the voice of the they listen to inner voice, you can say. Some voice comes from within. Okay, you are doing wrong, you are committing wrong, you should not do that. But another voice, there are two voices, good and bad. Another voice defends, that is the voice of the body, you can say, and one voice of the soul, conscience, and that says that no, this is not. For example, Aram is having that experience now. Two voices are coming. One is saying that the stolen horse, this is a stolen horse, he should not be a party. Another thing, explaining that stealing, it's not stealth, it's not a theft, because they are having that horse for riding only, they are not selling it out, they are not exchanging money for that, therefore it cannot be ascribed as, it cannot be associated with the theft. So that voice also defending. In this conflict, that evil voice of the evil thinking, that wins, always wins, maximum time, if you are dominated by that. So he tries to relax on what he thinks of stealing a horse just for a ride and stealing something like money. It's different from that. Next, he admits that if someone is crazy about horses, as both of them are, then it no more remains a stealing. it would not be called stealing unless they sell out the horse for money, and that they would never do. So the same thing is discussed here. He says that as they are crazy about riding, that cannot be associated with theft. And since they are not having any money, they are not selling that horse to anyone, so how can it be called theft? It cannot be called the theft, stealth, until or unless they sell it out for money. So he convinces his mind, his conscience like that. After that, Arun tells Murad to wait for some time till he wears clothes. Now he tells Murad, okay, wait, I'm just coming. He determined, he made up his mind to have a ride on that, and he reached the conclusion that it was not a theft, right? And he told Murad, okay, wait for me, I'm just coming by after changing. After some minutes, he jumps down to the yard from the window and leaps up onto the horse's back behind his cousin Murad. And after some time, he comes down. He jumps out of the window, and then he means jumps up to ride the horse and sat behind his cousin Murad. And yard is some open area in front. Usually it is in front of the house or at the back of the house, and it was maybe on the side of the house yard. He jumped out of the window. And now we come to know from the text that the narrator lives on Violet Avenue, which is at the outer part of the town. There was the countryside behind their house where one could see vineyards, orchards, irrigation ditches and country road. Now the narrator describes other things, that their house was at the outskirts of the town, at the far end of the town, from where countryside began, a rural area began, where farms, orchard and all these were. And he tells us he lives on Walnut Avenue. This was the address of them, which is at the outer part of the town. There was the countryside behind the house, and one could see vineyards, orchards, garden of fruits, irrigation ditches and country roads. The narrator further said that within 3 minutes they were on Olive Avenue. Within 3 minutes they reached there. After that the horse began to trot. The air was fresh and it was pleasant to breathe in it. They were enjoying a wonderful experience of riding a running horse. Within 3 minutes they reached Olive Avenue. After that the horse began to trot. It came on its brisk speed, its natural fast speed. The air was fresh. The narrator describes air also. It was very pleasant, pleasant time of the early morning, and it was very pleasant to breathe in. When you go in early in the morning for walk, you breathe in fresh air. It's very pleasant, and this experience is wonderful. They were enjoying a wonderful experience on riding a running horse. They were enjoying it. His cousin, who was considered one of the craziest members of his family, began to sing in a very bad manner. In a way, he was roaring. The narrator now generalizes his view that every family has a streak of craziness in any of its members. Streak means lining of craziness in the mind. So now his cousin Murad, the narrator tells us that his cousin Murad had a streak of craziness in his mind. And he also generalizes this truth. Every member, in every family you may find one member who has some craziness, crazy eccentricity, the unnatural behavior, all of sudden behavior, unexpected behavior. The person who does so is called crazy. You cannot predict what a crazy person can speak, can do at any moment. So Murad was considered to be one of the craziest members of his family, and he began to sing in a very bad manner. They were riding, they were feeling very happy, and Murad started singing loudly. Actually, he didn't know about any the notes about singing, sur and tal, what you call. He was singing in a bad manner. In a way, he was roaring. The narrator also generalizes that every family has a streak of craziness in any of its member. This has been generalized by the narrator. His cousin Murad was thought to be the natural descendant of the craziness that was found in his uncle Khosrow. In this ride, we come to know that the narrator tells us there was a member in his family. His Murad's uncle was Khosrow. He was eccentric type of person. He was crazy member. And descendant means a person who is related to you and who lives after you, such as your child or grandchild. My son is my descendant, and my grandson would be, your granddaughters would be my descendants. So this coming generations are called descendants, right? And Murad was descendant of Khosrow, his uncle. He was an enormous, having very big size, a very long height, and stoutly built person, having very big sized head with black hair and the largest mustaches, which had no comparison in San Joaquin Valley. So he had big mustaches that had no comparison in that valley, San Joaquin Valley. And he was big. He had a big head also big. In the text, powerful head has been given here. The word powerful. He had a powerful head, means very big sized head, and built in very having a very good height and stoutly built person. So rest of the story would be continued in the next video.